All right. So something that's been apparent to a lot of folks for a long time is that it's not always a right versus left, a black versus white. It's the narrative that's pushed a lot, but that's not really what's going on. There is an us versus them. Who is the us? Who is the them? Check out this video clip from Fox News.
Marianne Williamson joins me now. All right, so Marianne, are you considering primarying President Joe Biden?
No.
All right, so that was Marianne Williamson being interviewed by Jesse Waters on Fox News. And just right off the bat, you can clearly see why she lost in the primaries against Joe Biden and the other candidates, because she can answer a question without dodging it for 30 minutes. Let's continue.
Like many, many people, I'm thinking very deeply about what's going on in this country. And I realize that the horse race is not the conversation that most matters. You know, to listen to Fox, to listen to CNN, to listen to MSNBC, it's all about left versus right, isn't it? But I don't think that that's the real political divide that most matters in this country. I think that's kind of a cartoonish version of the political divide in this country that makes billions of dollars for political forces and media forces.
Marianne Williamson just went gangsta, full gangsta on Fox News. She called out Fox, she called out CNN, she called out all the mainstream media, she called out her political party, her political opponents, and laid it out there. It's not a left versus right. It's a have and a have not. It's powerful and the powerless. She's going to continue here in just a minute and call that out a little bit more specifically. And then I've got some more clips to go to. I'm very, very video heavy at this portion, so bear with me. It's all very good stuff and stuff that we need to be aware of, stuff that we need to know. Here she is, continue this little gangster streak.
The real political divide in this country, Jesse, is between the powerful and the powerless. And the powerful few are headquartered in both major political parties. It is the corporate-backed forces, whether it's big pharmaceutical companies, big oil companies, military defense contractors, etc., that are obstructing the financial well-being and the greater economic and professional and just personal opportunities of the American people. That's what concerns me.
I would agree with
Whether or
that,
not I
that
run
there's
for office,
definitely
I don't know.
a big guy versus little guy scenario, and that's always been the case.
Yeah, it has always been the case, but it hasn't always been apparent. Now you've got on news networks, you got celebrities and people that are on the left that are taking up a lot of the time slots on the shows because they're trying to pull on more and more people from the left on the late night shows, late morning shows. They're all left leaning. Even the people on the left are starting to point this out, that there is a divide, not so much on the left and right, but between the media, the haves, the have-nots, or as she said, the powerful versus the powerless. Okay, we know that, but this is confirmation, right? And some people don't know that, and they hate people that vote against them and people that vote different from them because they're told to. They're manipulated to think that way, right? Let's check out this article from. Can't believe I'm going to use an article from Vox, but let's go check that out. Study says politicians listen to rich people, not you. Now, one can say we knew that again, but it's being put out there more and more and more, right? This is an older article, but worth bringing up. Okay, who really matters in our democracy? The general public or wealthy elites? That's the topic of a recent study by political scientist Martin Gillens of Princeton and Benjamin Page of Northwestern. The study's gotten lots of attention over the past year because the authors conclude basically that the U.S. is a corrupt oligarchy where ordinary voters barely matter, or as they put it, economic elites and organized interest groups play a substantial part in affecting public policy, but the general public has little or no independent influence. But can that be right? Let's walk through the study and explain what it shows. Again, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. Okay, I'm actually going to stop right here, in fact, because again, I do have a lot of videos to cut to kind of walk you through some other things that have just, kind of been coming out. The link is in the description below for any and all articles that I go over. Okay, so check it out yourself, read the entire thing. All right, but here's some more confirmation of that. Okay, one of the other things. So one of the shows that I watch is a independent content creator. It's Tim Pool. Tim Pool's got, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 different YouTube channels and shows and everything, and he does a great job. Tim Pool, if you're not familiar with him, and I'm going to link to the specific show that I'm pulling from, because I do have several video clips from that show, and I hope he doesn't flag me or anything for that. And I do apologize to him for using so much of his footage, but it's so important, so valid for me to share with you all what was on that show. So if you don't watch Tim Pool or don't know anything about him, he's kind of a center left guy. He's always said that he's a center left guy. But even more recently, he's found himself leaning more to the right. He's one that agrees with me too. That studies with the studies that show that people that are left-leaning typically get their news from only left-leaning sources in a select few. People that lean to the right typically absorb news from both sides and are more open to hearing opposing views, whereas people on the left tend not to. So him being someone who is center left over time has listened to more, pulled up more facts, done some more studying, and in my opinion, in listening to him and things that he's saying, he is starting to lean more to the right, but very much so like me, he teeter-totters on both sides. Now, my biases may be more and more clear as videos come out, but I do feel like I'm very left on some things. I'm very right on some things. I'm very middle of the road on some things. But what I do believe in is that we elect our officials to go and represent us and our interests. That's why we elect them, right? They say they're going to do something. We understand what they believe. We understand where they stand on certain things. So we elect them to go do these things. Well, what really happens in Washington? We're going to look at some clips from Timcast. Again, the link to that show specifically will be in the description because I do use several clips from it. But this was an interview that he did with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is from my state of Georgia. Now, do I agree with Tim on everything he posts and everything he talks about in every view he has? No. Do I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on every single thing? No. I have to get past those obstacles to hear what she's saying now. Just like if you oppose what I say or what they're saying, I want you to get past it to hear what the actual story is. Let those biases, let those opposing thoughts or fights that you may have internally between Republican, Democrat, whatever, let it go. Listen to what she says. And if this is true, how alarming it is. Okay, several clips. We're going to run through them. I'm going to come back and kind of add some commentating to it a little bit here and there. So bear with me as we go through these. But man, these are powerful, powerful clips from the Timcast show.
You seem like a regular person. And so with that, tell us about what your experience has been like entering Congress.
Ooh.
You were telling us about how they just like do voice votes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I want everyone to know this. And if you hate me, you still need to know this. Okay. So when I got kicked off committees, I was like, all right, I'm brand new here. I want to learn how this place works. And here's what else you need to understand. If you're the minority party, no one in the minority party has control on committees. The majority party has control on committees. So if Democrats are in control, they're controlling the committees and they control what bills are actually voted on. Republicans have no choice. We can't put a bill to the floor unless we have 218 signatures to pull it out, and we don't have 218.
All right. So that's the first thing that I was unaware of myself, was that if you are the minority party, you're not putting the bills out there. Right. And they're not going to hear them unless you have enough signatures, which the Republicans don't right now. So the party that is the majority, which is the Democrats, they're the ones that are putting forth all the bills to all the committees, all the panels, whatever. So something to keep in mind when we think, well, all these bills are being passed, but nothing's being passed on this side, or what are the Republicans even doing? Well, as we see here, it sounds like they're kind of handicapped right now. They can't do anything. And the reverse is going to be true when the Republicans are the majority. Whoever is the majority is going to be pushing the bills. That's going to change every however many, 2 years, 4 years, or whenever it does. And it's unfortunate because now it's gotten so gridlocked. in the House or in Congress in general, that it is left versus right so much in those situations that they are not willing to compromise. As like I was saying, I think most people are willing to compromise on those things, but we're seeing that our representatives are not. That's not how they play the game. Let's continue.
I got kicked off committees and I was like, okay, big deal. So I go sit on the House floor, just sitting there watching what's happening, because again, I've never been elected. I've never held office, but here's what happens. So they were debating a bill back and forth, and they're debating it back and forth. And there was someone sitting in Nancy Pelosi's seat, the speaker's chair. Was not Nancy Pelosi. I don't know who it was because they had a mask on and everybody wears masks. And I was like, okay, I don't know who that is. It was actually a man. So they're debating back and forth. And then the guy up there holding the gavel in the speaker's chair calls for the vote by voice. So the Democrats, there was about 5 of them on their side. And there was about 5 Republicans on our side. The Democrats, it's their bill. So they're like, yay. And they're saying, yay, they want to vote for it. The Republicans on our side, they're used to getting defeated at this point because we're into February. And they are saying, they go, nay, without enthusiasm. And then all of a sudden, the guy up there, Speaker Mask Face, he gavels it in. The bill has passed. And I was like, I'm sitting there holding my voting card in my hand, and I'm like, I didn't vote. And I was so confused. So I call one of the Republican floor staffers, and I'm like, what just happened? And he goes, ma'am, that's how we pass bills.
All right, look, you can judge Marjorie Taylor Greene for not knowing how all that works, or being, unaware of what she was getting into. But that should be alarming, that of all the members of Congress, whether it's the House that's voting on something or the Senate that's voting on something, it's probably the same thing in either one. But that she said there were 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans voting on a bill, and that was it. Where's the involvement by everyone else? Is it just figured out that Democrats vote for Democrat stuff, Republicans vote for Republican stuff? I'm appalled to know that that's happening. I hope it angers you a little bit. And we don't know who is and who isn't doing it. And she's going to get into that in a minute. And God bless her for what she's doing. Because again, she may not be perfect. We may disagree with her on several things. But it sounds like she's doing some good up there, or at least trying to, ruffling some feathers and trying to hold people more accountable. Let's continue.
And I was like, I said, what are you talking about? There's 435 members of Congress. There's like 10 people that said yay and nay. I didn't even vote. I didn't say anything. There's a machine. So here's what we have. On every other row, there's a little machine. It looks like a credit card machine. And I have an ID card. It looks like a driver's license. As a member of Congress, you put it in there, and there's 3 buttons you can push. You can push green for yes, red for no, and then there's a yellow one that's for present. I don't know why you need present, but whatever. So I didn't get to vote. No one else voted. It was not recorded. So here's what I found out. Most of the bills in Congress are passed with a voice vote, meaning millions and millions and billions of American taxpayer dollars are passed that way.
Remember,
Come on, man. That's how they're doing it. That's how millions and billions are being voted on by a handful of people. She calls out some things. I think she might be joking, but she might be real as far as some of the things that are being voted on here in just a second. But wow.
We should read the bills, because I can tell you there's horrible things in them.
isn't it crazy that you're
Like
saying that?
$25 million for butterflies. I love butterflies, but do I want to spend? What about $25 million for desert fish?
Well, what about
desert fish?
$10 million for Pakistani gender studies programs?
Oh, it's so important. Pakistanis don't know what gender they are. How many genders do Pakistanis have? Why are American taxpayers paying for
and
that?
speedboats for Sri Lanka. I remember that one too off the top of my head.
Now, I know some of those are real. Some of those are real things that were passed. Real bills, spending bills, for your tax money and my tax money to go to other countries for gender studies. I don't know about the butterflies and the desert fish, but they're voting on these ridiculous things. Like, every time a bill is proposed, it's there's a lot of meat to it, right? There's hundreds, if not thousands of pages in some of these bills. And as she said, for most of them, the staff is reading them, telling them what to vote on or what's in there, and then they vote. If they vote out of the, handful of people that are there. But in all these spending bills, it may sound great to you, like, oh man, they're going to put in a high-speed train system for, $8 billion a year is going to go towards that. Well, the spending bill may be $3 trillion. Where's all the other money going? Oh, well, it's going to other countries so they can, I don't know, have gender reassignment surgery at our dime so that they can, rebuild and restore DeLoreans or something. There's so much meat and filler and waste in these bills that if they took the time to read it, most of them wouldn't get passed. But they're not taking the time to read it, and they're just passing them because there's not enough opposition to it. Let's keep going.
But I want to talk about roll calling votes. So back to that story, you guys. When I found out that they could pass bills by voice, I also learned floor procedure. So it's like games, right? There's rules on each of us, what we can do. So the next time the bill came up and they were debating the bill back and forth, and I was really paying attention this time, and I had my lovely little book in my lap that I had the rules. The speaker up there, Speaker Maskface is what I call him because I didn't know who it was. He asked for the vote, the voice vote. And this time, so the Democrats are like, yay. And the Republicans over here, nay, because they're used to losing. And right as Speaker Maskface is about to gavel it in, announce the bill has passed, the rule is, as a member of Congress, and any of us can do it, you have to get to the microphone right then, and you have to say, Madam Speaker, I ask for the recorded vote. And I did call him Madam Speaker because gender doesn't count.
She went gangsta too. Yeah, I mean, do what you got to do, right? Know the rules. I mean, again, you can judge her for what you want if she didn't know the rules or whatever. Most of us don't know the rules. So this is educational for us, and that's what this is about. I'm not really highlighting her for anything necessarily. I do think what she's doing is great because she is calling them out and she is holding them more accountable. I do agree with that 100%. But get past all that. This is education to us about how it actually works, what they're doing, what they don't want to do. And she's going to get into that in a minute too. And that's enough to really, okay, let's keep going.
So here's what happened. It was like just a complete change. When I asked for that, that means at that moment, they have to call all 435 members of Congress, no matter where they are, to come down and vote on that bill. And everyone is on record. So here's the deal. Recorded votes are so important. So I committed myself to that. And I kept on asking for recorded votes. And I kept on asking for recorded votes. And I pissed everybody off. I'm talking about royally.
Good.
Here's what happened. So every time they got called out of their committee meeting. They got called out of their lunch with lobbyists. They got called out of their fundraising calls that they were sitting there begging for money. They had to wake Jerry Nadler up from his nap. I mean, it was unbelievable. Everybody had to come in and vote. What else did it do? It messed up the schedule. Nancy was very upset because they had a whole schedule. Bills were flying through, and all of a sudden they weren't flying through anymore.
All right, so I want you to hear what she's saying. That all right, backing up a little bit. So the party that holds the majority is the one putting all the bills forward. If people aren't showing up to vote, more than likely those bills are going to pass. Right? So those bills are passing. And all those bills are Democrat sponsored, Democrat written, Democrat, left leaning, progressive, whatever bills, which some of them are probably okay. I'm not going to knock them. I don't know what the bills are, but without opposition, without compromise, without anyone being held accountable, they're just flying through. So yeah, I'm sure Nancy and everyone else on the left was super stoked to see all this progress happening. Well, as soon as she starts calling these called votes, it throws a wrench in the gears. And like you said, it pisses everybody off. Left, right, and you're going to see it left and right. Every one of them. Because that's not the way they do it.
Cori Bush's bill. I defeated her bill. It was really important. Her bill actually pass by voice until I asked for the
Wow.
recorded votes.
Which bill was it?
It would have allowed felons in prison to vote.
Oh, wow.
That's what her bill did.
Yeah.
So it won by the voice, but then when you double checked it, they were like, "Oh, we made a mistake." She
No,
didn't.
when I asked for the recorded votes, even Democrats voted against her. Wow. We had 318, I believe it was 318 no votes on Cori Bush's bill to allow felons in prison to vote. I have put and led the effort to put the entire United States Congress on record so that Democrats can look up their representative and say, how did my Democrat that I voted for vote? Republicans, how did my Republican representative vote? I think this is extremely important for everyone across the country to know the job performance of their representative.
The establishment can't be happy with you.
Oh, no. I got in trouble with Republicans, too. As a matter of fact, I got chewed out. I mean, chewed out. You want to know why? Marjorie, people don't want to be on record.
Let what she just said sink in again. I'm going to play it again. And she whispered it a little low. Turn the volume up a touch. Listen to what she just said.
People don't want to be on record.
Oh, no.
Meaning they don't want their constituents to know how they voted.
We have people that we have voted for, or maybe voted against, but people that the people have voted for that are representing us in Congress that don't want their votes accounted for. They don't want a record of it. They don't want you to know what they voted for and what they voted against. That's why she was saying earlier, there's a button to press if you're for it, if a button to press if you're against it, and there's a button to press for president. That's why that button's there, because some people don't want a vote recorded saying yay or nay. They want to toe that middle line. Well, we shouldn't be electing people to do that. There's hardly any bills or anything that should be coming out that way. You're either pushing a bill and you're supporting it, or you're knocking it down because it's not what it needs to be. All that present or all that voting by voice where they're not being held accountable, that is all for their sake and not yours. That's all for them to save face. And when it comes election season again, which it is, it's midterm election season. We're going to talk about that right quick. When it comes election season, no one's going to be able to put out a negative ad that they voted against something that would help you. And but they'll probably say they voted for something that helped you, but there's no record that's going to exist for a lot of the stuff that has passed or been knocked down or whatever, because they're doing these floor, just random voice votes, and they're not being held accountable. So here's what's going on. It's 2022. Right? This is midterm. So if you hadn't already started seeing some election ads, flyers coming in the mail, whatever it may be, promotions on social media, it's midterm season. There are plenty of seats available. There's a website called Ballotpedia. I'm not super familiar with it, but I did come across it in my studies of kind of getting ready for the show here. And it does show, and this says United States Senate elections of 2022, but it does have the other branches here, and it shows you who's running. There's a ton of information on the site, but if you come on down here a little bit more, it'll tell you who's running by state, who the incumbent is. Democrat, Republican, you can click on them and it'll give you some information about them. There's going to be links to their site so you can read about them and see where they stand. Look, the 2022, all right, it's 2022, it's January. We'll be having elections, November? Start now looking at who's running in your state, and not just for Senate or for House, but I know, I think we've got a governor election coming up in Georgia. In fact, I know we do. We got a governor election coming up in Georgia. There's going to be local elections coming up. It would behoove you to start researching those candidates now. See who is going to be running for office in your local community, your local board of this and that and the other, your Senate, your Congress, your governors, your mayors. whoever it may be. Don't just go to the polls every 4 years and vote for the president. Okay, this is really, as we're seeing, this is where things are won and lost by who has control over the House, who has control over the Senate. Okay, if we sit by idly by, whether you're on the left or the right, I'm not leaning one way or the other in this conversation. Regardless of where you are in this, you need to do your homework, figure out who you're going to vote for, why you're going to vote for them, and I would highly recommend a couple of things. One, once you find your candidate, tell the people about the candidate. What do you like about them? You know, maybe even stuff you don't really care about them. You can tell them how they compare to other candidates, whatever. But tell people, promote that person, right? And then ask them if they're voting. See if your friends and family are voting. If not, offer them a ride to the polls. Make sure they're registered. It's January. We got time. Okay. I don't know. I say that. I don't know what the stipulations are per area, state and whatnot like that, but should have time. Help them out. Help them get. This is a big deal. People often overlook the midterm elections because they're always focused on those, big every 4 years with the president and everything. And those are big. Don't get me wrong. Those big. But the people that are in Congress, oftentimes, and in your local communities too, in your state and everything, often have more direct powers than whoever's sitting in the White House. Yes, they're the president, big, bad, and awesome. That's great. But a lot of what they do doesn't impact you and I as directly as what our state representatives do, what our governors do, what our local heads of like New York City mayor like that, right? What those guys are pushing out there are going to directly affect those communities. And you have someone in your state, in your city, in your district or whatever, that's going to be pushing things that are going to affect you directly. A lot more so than the guy or woman or whoever or whatever, it's 2022, whatever, sits in the White House going forward. Okay? So get active, get out there. Let's see, vote in the primaries, vote in the midterms. Don't sit this one out. We need more of the powerless in office. If this is the powerful versus the powerless, we need more of us in there. More of the powerless in there representing us, changing the tide, changing how things work. We need to reclaim the people's house. That's what it's called, right? The people's house, right? We need to reclaim that. We the people, that phrase is so powerful. That's supposed to be who's running the show. But we are always, and I forget who said this, it might have been Reagan. No, it wasn't. It was way back. He was one of the founding fathers. I think we're always one generation away from losing it. So get out there and vote. Get others to vote. Be proactive. We the people run this country. Don't forget that. You have not only a right, but an obligation to reclaim this country, the freedoms, and the representation you deserve.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.